Most people are sleepwalking through life. They think they have time. They say, I'll figure it out later. I'll chase my dream next year. I'll fix this relationship when things calm down. But the truth? You don't have time. Carl Jung said, life really does begin at 40. Up until then, you are just doing research. But here's what no one tells you. Some people never leave the research phase. They spend their whole life preparing to live, but never actually do it. And then one day they look back and realize they were always waiting for more clarity, for more courage, for permission. But life didn't wait. It passed. Quietly. Permanently. That's the tragedy. Every day, without realizing it, you witness the fragility of life. And yet you keep living as if it's infinite. You walk past people in the supermarket, on the street, at work. And statistics tell us that some of them won't be here 6 months from now. You don't know it, but maybe neither will you. Every day, we pass people who will be dead within a year. We scroll past strangers on social media who will be gone before the next birthday. You've probably stood in an elevator, smiled at someone in traffic, answered a message from a person who didn't know they were living the final chapter of their story. That's not meant to depress you. It's meant to wake you up. And here's the dangerous illusion. We think we have time. We always think we have time. But time doesn't belong to us. It never did. Carl Jung warned of this illusion. He said, man is not complete when he simply lives in time. He must also become conscious of it. Think about that. We're not just supposed to exist in time. We're supposed to realize we're running out of it. And that realization should transform how we live. Take James, a 42-year-old man who spent 15 years saying he'd one day start his own design studio. He hated his job, felt spiritually hollow, but he kept putting it off. Just need to save a little more or wait until the kids are older. Then came a phone call. His younger brother gone. Car accident, instantly. And for the first time, James realized he might not even live to see the retirement he was sacrificing everything for. Suddenly, his fear of risk was replaced by a greater fear, dying with his music still inside him. He didn't need therapy after that. He needed a new relationship with time. That's the type of inner earthquake Jung spoke of, when the unconscious bursts into awareness and forces a rebirth. Or think of Maria. She's been married 18 years. No abuse, no fights, just emptiness. She tells herself, this is what marriage becomes. You just learn to survive. But one night, she overhears her teenage son tell a friend, my mom looks like a ghost. That one sentence pierced through a decade of denial. She wasn't living. She was dissociating. Carl Jung believed that when the inner life is denied, it eventually leaks out as symptoms. Anxiety, resentment, unexplained exhaustion. Maria wasn't crazy. She was unfulfilled, and her soul was screaming for her attention. The Jungian path is not about impulsively leaving your life. It's about asking the question society trains you not to ask. Is this the life I was meant to live, or the one I settled for? According to Jung, what you ignore doesn't go away. It goes unconscious. And what's unconscious controls your life until you bring it to light. Most people don't live, they repeat, the same routines, the same thoughts, the same emotional loops. They don't realize their fear of change is costing them their entire life. Here's the kicker. Your job, your partner, your house, your habits, none of them are permanent. One phone call, one diagnosis, one accident, and everything you called normal is shattered. That's not pessimism. That's truth. And truth is the beginning of freedom. So the next time you think, I'll get to it later, ask yourself, what if there is no later? Because if that thought makes your stomach drop, good. That's the real you waking up. That's the moment Jung would say the ego cracks and the soul starts to speak. Jung believed that the soul cries out through what we suppress. Anxiety, burnout, meaninglessness, these aren't just symptoms. They're signals. They're your soul yelling, this isn't it. He warned that when we ignore the inner voice, when we trade authenticity for approval, passion for safety, truth for comfort, we become psychologically sick. And that sickness doesn't always look dramatic. It looks like procrastination, chronic indecision, always needing distraction, being busy with everything except what actually matters. Real life is not found in the comfort zone. It begins where the excuses end. And if you're not careful, You'll become one of the many who confuse movement with progress. You'll stay busy, but go nowhere. You think your anxiety is just stress. You think your depression is a chemical imbalance. You think your exhaustion is about needing more sleep. But Carl Jung had a radical idea. We cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. In other words, your emotional pain isn't just a problem to get rid of. It's a message. It's a summons from your inner world, calling you to wake up. To Jung, emotions were not just reactions. They were symbols of something deeper happening in your psyche. Anxiety? It might not be a disorder. It might be a part of your soul screaming, "You're not living in truth." Depression? Maybe it's not just sadness. Maybe it's your inner self retreating, because your outer life has become a lie. He once wrote, "Depression is like a woman in black. If she turns up, don't shoo her away. Invite her in, offer her a seat, treat her like a guest, and listen to what she wants to say." That's shocking to many people, because we've been taught to fight our symptoms. Medicate them, hide them, get back to normal. But what if normal is what's killing you? Take Adam. He has a high-paying job, fit, smart, socially respected. But every Sunday night he's hit with crushing anxiety, racing thoughts, shortness of breath, that doom is coming feeling. He blames burnout, takes a vacation. It comes back. Eventually, in therapy, he breaks down, confesses something he's never said aloud. "I don't think I want this life. I think I've just been performing since I was a teenager." That anxiety? It wasn't a mental defect. It was a spiritual alarm clock screaming, "You're living a lie." Jung believed that when we live in contradiction to our inner values, our psyche revolts, not to punish us, but to wake us up. Or look at Lisa. She's the rock in her family, takes care of everyone, never complains. But now she's having panic attacks in traffic, waking up at 3 a.m. with dread. Her doctor says generalized anxiety. Her friends say, "You need rest." But in truth, Lisa hasn't cried in 5 years, hasn't said no in 10, hasn't asked what she needs in so long, she forgot she's allowed to. Anxiety is her soul's protest, her unspoken grief, her invisible exhaustion. Jung would say, her nervous system isn't malfunctioning, it's finally telling the truth. Carl Jung taught that behind every symptom is a story, and behind that story is a truth the conscious mind doesn't want to face. So the psyche disguises it as anxiety, depression, addiction, perfectionism, or overthinking. But the root is always the same. You're living in opposition to your authentic self. You're staying quiet when something inside you is screaming. You're shrinking when your soul wants to expand. That's not weakness. That's misalignment. You don't heal anxiety by chasing peace. You heal it by listening to what it's trying to tell you. Ask yourself, what am I pretending not to know? Where am I saying yes when I mean no? What part of me have I silenced just to be accepted? These are not easy questions, but they are the beginning of psychological liberation. Because once you hear the truth beneath your anxiety, you can stop treating the symptom and start transforming the source. You don't need a philosophy degree to understand life is short. You just need to listen, really listen, to people who've come close to losing it. People who've had a heart attack at 42, who got diagnosed at 29, who stood at their mother's funeral thinking, "I never really knew her." They all say the same thing in one form or another. None of the stuff I worried about mattered. Carl Jung saw these experiences not as tragedies alone, but as psychological initiations, moments where the ego, the false self, shatters and the real self starts to emerge. Jung wrote, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses." These moments of loss or crisis don't give you answers. They give you clarity. They strip away the noise, the lies, the stories you've been telling yourself to survive. Let's get real for a moment. A successful executive in his 50s once told his therapist, "I built everything, the house, the company, the name, but now I come home to strangers. My kids barely talk to me. My wife sleeps in a different room, and I don't even like myself." He hadn't failed at life. He just postponed the things that made it worth living. Jung would say, this man was a victim of the persona, the mask he wore to gain social approval. The problem is, When you wear that mask too long, you forget who's underneath. A woman spends 20 years being the fixer, the people pleaser, the one who never says no. Everyone relies on her. No one asks if she's okay. One day she breaks down in a grocery store, crying in front of the cereal aisle. Not because of trauma, but because she realized she didn't even know what she wanted anymore. She lived her life being nice, being useful, being there for others, and became invisible to herself. Jung might say she was caught in a collective role, the good woman, the selfless giver. But she ignored her shadow, the part of her crying out for boundaries, space, self-respect. And eventually, the shadow erupted. Then there's the story of a man diagnosed with cancer. Terminal, they said. He sold his house, quit his job, and started traveling the world, 1 month at a time. 3 years later, he was still alive. He went back to the doctor. They were stunned. His cancer had regressed, dramatically. You can call it luck, but something deeper was at play. Jung would point to the liberating power of individuation, the psychological process of becoming your true self. When the soul is finally freed from living a lie, the body often follows. This man didn't just heal physically, he healed existentially. He realized the worst thing wasn't death. It was never having truly lived. Here's what connects all these stories. They waited until life cracked them open. They thought they had time. They were wrong. Jung didn't say these moments were to be avoided. He saw them as turning points, invitations to shift from a shallow life of survival to a meaningful life of authenticity. He said, "Only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life." And that paradox is this: sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is the best thing that could have ever happened, because it forces you to wake up. Carl Jung was one of the first to frame the so-called midlife crisis not as a breakdown, but as a spiritual turning point. He called it the time when the ego, your carefully crafted identity, starts to fall apart. Not because you're failing, but because your true self is demanding to be born. It's not a crisis of career or money or age. It's a crisis of meaning. It's the silent panic that creeps in when you've built a life that looks good, but doesn't feel like yours. You've climbed the ladder, but it's been leaning against the wrong wall the whole time. Jung said, "Thoroughly unprepared, we take the step into the afternoon of life. We take this step with the false presupposition that our truths and ideals will serve us as hitherto. But we cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning." What does that mean? It means that the goals that once motivated you, success, validation, image, stop feeding you. And if you keep chasing them, you'll feel emptier than ever. Because the soul has different needs in the second half of life. It doesn't want to achieve. It wants to become. But here's the problem. Most people ignore this call. They medicate it. They escape it. They bury it under work, pleasure, or distraction. They fear that if they stop performing, stop pleasing, stop achieving, they'll be nothing. But what they're really afraid of is facing themselves. Because once you stop running, once you look in the mirror without your title, your mask, your achievements, you'll be forced to ask, who am I really, and what have I done with my life? That question scares people, but it's the only question that leads to freedom. Living wisely isn't about overthinking. It's about deciding, acting, and shedding the illusions that keep you stuck. Here's what Carl Jung would urge you to do, not later, but now. 1. Do something that scares your ego but awakens your soul. That's the thing you've been avoiding. The truth you haven't spoken. The risk you've convinced yourself it's not the right time to take. Jung believed that your shadow, the rejected parts of you, often hold the exact energy you need to become whole. So if you're afraid to write, speak, leave, start, confront, love, or walk away, that's exactly where your life is waiting. 2. Ask, whose life am I really living? This question will burn, but it will also set you free. Did you choose your career, or was it chosen for you? Are you living out your own values, or someone else's expectations? Jung once said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Because once you do, the fake life, the performance, can't continue. You'll lose things. People might fall away. Comfort will vanish. But in its place, you'll find something you haven't felt in years. Peace. Not the peace of avoiding conflict, but the deep, fierce peace of finally being in alignment. 3. Start living by the hour, not the year. People say, this year I'll change. But they don't realize, this year is made up of days, and those days are made of hours. You want to change your life? Change 1 hour. The hour you wake up. The hour you're scrolling. The hour you're numbing out. Spend 1 hour doing what aligns with who you really are. Writing, walking, creating, learning, sitting in stillness, finally calling the person you've been meaning to forgive or confront. Because if you don't master your hours, your years will master you. 4. Stop asking for permission. No one is coming to tell you you're ready now. No one will ever give you perfect conditions. No one will hand you a map and say, go live your true life now. You will have to give yourself permission. Carl Jung believed the soul has its own inner compass, but most people are too busy following the crowd to listen. You'll know when you've heard it. It feels like truth. It feels like fire. It feels like, I can't keep pretending. And when that voice rises up, don't silence it. Don't ignore it because of your paycheck or your image or your comfort. Because the cost of ignoring that voice is your life. You keep thinking you have time. That's the illusion. You'll love them later. You'll forgive them later. You'll start your dream, speak your truth, live your life later. But later is where your real life goes to die. Carl Jung said something chilling, but necessary. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Notice he used the word privilege. Not right, not guarantee. Privilege. That means not everyone will reach it. Most people won't. They'll live in roles. They'll settle into survival. They'll stay busy, distracted, comfortable, and they'll call it life. But at the end, when all the noise is gone, when the job, the reputation, the money, the likes, the pressure, the applause, all of it fades, you'll be left alone with one question. Did I live as me? Or did I live as a character in someone else's story? That is the real midlife crisis. That is the silent scream behind the eyes of so many who look successful but feel dead inside. So what do? You stop performing. You start listening to the small, persistent voice that's been there all along. You choose truth over image, depth over distraction, and meaning over momentum. Because life is short, and nothing, absolutely nothing, is more tragic than a soul that never got the chance to be seen. If this message hit you in the gut, it's for a reason. It means you're ready. So take a breath. Now ask yourself, what is one truth I've been avoiding that I need to face today? Drop it in the comments. Write it, claim it, own it. You have no idea who you might inspire by simply being real. And if you're ready for more brutally honest insights from Carl Jung and the psychology of living fully, subscribe and join a tribe that's not afraid of depth. Because your soul is trying to speak. Let's make sure it's finally heard.